Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the HTC Desire 626. You can see the full specs on the side, but just to go into the main ones: 5-inch 720p display, Snapdragon 410 and 2GB of RAM. So this makes the direct competitor to the 3rd gen Moto G. How well it compares and how good it actually is, we will see in the full review. So let's just start off with that and the design and build quality. Let's compare with a 5.2 inch. As you can see, pretty much the same height. Also the width very comparable. It is a little bit more narrow and a little bit thicker, but in terms of size it's still quite okay. It feels very nice in the hand. One hand use was no problem. Very nice curves here, so quite ergonomic in the hand, so no real complaints here. The power button is in the right position to really easily touch it. There is no double tap to wake or something like that though. The volume rockers are a little bit high up top, but still okay because I prefer them on the right hand side. On the back we can see the flash and the camera. Here we see a microphone. On the top there's the headphone jack. Here we can see the tray for the SIM card, and if you have the dual SIM version along with the micro SD card slot, it is a little bit of a flimsy flap, but you can get it done. And on the top we have the micro USB port. So that's it. I think it lies nice in the hand. So in terms of design, I'm totally fine. The material is quite okay. It is maybe not the grippiest one, but the plastic after all isn't also super slippery. Not problems. Quite compact in the hand. A little bit more on the tall side, but no issues here. The only thing that I have a little bit of an issue is the build quality, because one thing that you can see here is you can bend the device quite extremely. And this maybe also caused it because it was a review unit. On this side here it is a little bit loose, and it almost feels like you would hit a button sometimes, and this makes it feel less substantial. Not really super cheap, and I think if you don't bend it like a crazy person once you get it, this shouldn't happen, and then it actually feels quite okay. So it definitely doesn't feel super premium or anything like that, but it also doesn't feel super cheap. Let's get into the display and see what we've got here. 5-inch 720p. In terms of sharpness, I still don't have any issues. This resolution is still more than fine enough. The maximum brightness wasn't really that great, so sunlight readability definitely wasn't the best. It barely worked, but still, what's to expect here on a mid-range device. The colors are quite nice. They could maybe pop a little bit, be a little bit more vibrant, but that's also not the biggest issue. The whites are okay, but I will talk about one thing about the whites later. The black could have been a little bit deeper, but the one issue I have here with this display, and this is very noticeable once we go into the browser, the viewing angles aren't super stable, because as you can see here, they shift quite dramatically on certain angles, and this is not that visible here on the camera, but what it does is there is a certain degree when you look at it from off angle where it gets super cold. You go a little bit further and then it gets super warm. So you only have a quite nice white if you look straight onto it. If you go a little bit off axis, it's either too warm or too cold. In normal use, after a few days I got used to it and it wasn't an issue, but still it's not the most stable one in terms of viewing angles. Other than that, brightness is okay, the colors are quite nice, they could pop a little bit, but yeah, that's it for that. If you check the speakers now, only this one here is the speaker on the right side. There is no stereo speaker or anything like that. Let's get another one. I guess it's quite obvious. It's not the loudest one. There's also not a whole lot of bass, pretty much nothing. The mids are weak and the highs though are clear, so maximum volume is about okay, I would say average. The position is okay because at least it's front firing. It gets the job done, but definitely far from being the best, and it definitely could have been louder. So I would say it's average at best. Okay, let's get into the performance. Start with the browsing performance. As you can see here, the 410, I have to say, delivers quite a nice performance. If you can see here within the browser, mostly quite smooth, not maybe super smooth, but no complaints here either. If you go, for example, into Phoenix, you can see the performance is really nice, and I really like how smooth something like a low-end or maybe mid-range SoC can provide the performance, because this is nice, no real complaints. Also Google Plus, which is quite a laggy app, works still absolutely fine. I didn't have any issues, also quite responsive here. If you go into Palabra, the same thing, so no real complaints. And we have 2 GB here, and this should be the standard on any Android device, because the multitasking capabilities, because of that, are a lot better. Because you can see, I have no complaints in terms of performance, not at all. And the okay thing is, with 2 GB of RAM, multitasking was quite nice. There is always a little bit of a small little refresh, but it's not like it would reload, so I'm perfectly happy with that. And the same goes for the gaming performance. No real complaints here either. It is not flagship level, but it works really well. For something like a low-end device, you won't really have any issues. Let's go into it. Let's just do a quick race for you to see the performance. And I usually use this game because it just has the fastest loading times. So let's see what we can get. As you can see, also smooth. I shouldn't maybe have chosen a dark app, but I think it still works, as you can see here. There is a lot of glare because of the lighting here, but I hope it is visible. Sorry for that, I should have chosen a different track. But as I already said, it is totally fine. Performance, no complaints. 2 GB of RAM does a great job. Performance was also better. It is maybe not the fastest one in terms of app launch times. It always needs a little bit of time. It's just not on a flagship level, but once the app is loaded, it is very smooth. No complaints here either. It's just the reloading and loading in general that is slightly less than the best ones out there. Okay, let's get to the battery. A full charge takes 2.5 hours, so no quick charge and so on. So that's definitely not the best result, but yeah, there's only so much we can do. All these low-end devices don't have this. So let's get into the battery life here first. The one thing that I saw at my first weekend was, as you can see here, 2 days with 3 hours and 40, and then I thought this device has quite an impressive battery life for an only 2000 milliamp hour battery. But after that I saw the real thing, because we have 1 day 3.5 hours, 1 day slightly over 3.5 hours, 1 day slightly over 3.5 hours. So as you can see, that's pretty much the average. What I also got in a video YouTube rundown, in one session 5 hours and 20 over the course of, as you can see, slightly over 5.5 hours. And I did a Geekbench that says 4 hours and 50 from 100 to 0. As you can see, I would expect in normal life to get you to around 3.5 to 4 hours, maybe even more, because all these tests have been done with 60% of brightness, and that's not too bad, but it's also, yeah, maybe about, I would say about average. Okay, let's go into the software. We have, if we can see that in the software, Android 5.1 with HTC Sense 7.0. And it does a quite solid job, no problems here. It is maybe not my first choice in terms of the looks, but the nice thing is we have lock screen controls, we have quick settings that are customizable. I just don't like the look so much because this looks a lot like ice cream sandwich for me still, but it's not the worst thing. Other than that, we don't really have a lot additions. What we have is pretty much stock Android, just in a different package. So it's not bad, but it's not something that blows me away. It's a solid performance, and the software does a fine job. So no real complaints. It's just not my cup of tea in terms of the UI design. If we now go into the camera, 13 megapixel camera and 5 megapixel selfie cam. The selfie cam was quite sharp, no problem here. Also quite good color reproduction and so on. But if we go into the main cam, the low light camera capabilities were okay. It was quite blurry, but therefore not too noisy. If you go into the back main camera for the normal pics, what I noticed, the autofocus was quite slow, so it always needed to wait for just like a second once the camera was still, and then it focused. But then the focus was actually quite nice. Sometimes on the viewfinder it seemed like it was focusing properly, but after, if you see it on the monitor or so, you notice it didn't super properly focus. But in most cases, with the slower focus, it did quite a good job. Quite nice color reproduction, contrast was nice, sharpness was good once properly focused, so no real complaints. I was actually surprised that it did focus so well, and no real issues. The contrast was nice. I'm personally totally fine with this camera. The 30 megapixel did actually surprise me for an HTC camera. And the video, same thing as well. The autofocus works a little bit slower, but once it does get the time to get it right, it was actually quite good. So that's it for the in-depth part. Okay, it's time to wrap things up. In terms of design, no complaints here. It feels nice in the hand with really nice curves, still compact and lightweight enough to make a good appearance in the hand. It's just the build quality that I would like to have seen a little bit more on the substantial side. The display, not impressive, but also not disappointing. A little bit of weaker viewing angles and the colors could have been more vibrant. Other than that, in normal life, no issues here either. The sound could have been a little bit louder and richer, but at least it's front firing, so not that bad. Still not more than average. The performance, though, I would say is definitely above average, because 2GB of RAM with the Snapdragon 410 delivered a really nice experience. Definitely way better than a 1GB device. And apart from the slightly slower loading times compared to flagship, this one performs really well, very consistent. All has been done really nice. The battery life, let's say average. 3.5 to 4 hours. You can get more if you maybe get a lower brightness. Not the best outcome, but it did get me through the day, so it's fine. Sense with 5.1 Android worked out quite nice. Solid. It's a little bit of a matter of a personal taste if you like the UI. Personally, it's not my first choice, but I can't really complain because it did all I wanted it to do just fine. No complaints here. And the camera was surprisingly good. Autofocus was a little bit on the slower side, but therefore quite accurate, sharp pictures, quite easy to handle it in auto mode. If you want to snap fast pictures, then it's definitely not the right one because it's on the slower side, but the pictures then turn out quite nice. So, is it a legit competitor to, for example, something like the Moto G 3rd generation? And I would say definitely yes, because the overall qualities are there. It really comes down to availability and pricing, I think, because here in Germany it seems to be quite hard to get it. And if I see it, sometimes it's around 280 euros to 300 euros, which is a little bit too much. If you get it for around 200 euros or dollars or something like that, I think the value is quite okay because this device is okay. The bandy design or something like that isn't really an issue because when do you really band it or have anything? And if you get it out of the box and don't have any issues with it in terms of design and build quality, I think it should do just fine. So performance was there, battery life was okay, camera is good. So for the price and for the level it has to compete with, it does a quite okay job. It's just the price that really makes a big impact on the decision after all, I would have to say. For a good price, if you want something different than a Moto G or something like that, nothing done bad. I can't really say anything other than that. Okay, that's it for my review of the HTC Desire 626. If you have any question or anything to say, leave it in the comments below. And if you like this, please give it a like. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Please reshare this video, it would be nice because it helps my discoverage. Other than that, I would say bye, have a nice day, until next time, bye. I'll be back.